What's going on, everyone? Brian here, and we've got a reaction video that you sent my way asking for my thoughts on Crojax's New World Hates Its Players. Now, I haven't seen this, so this is going to be a full reaction video. And just as a update, if you've never seen any of my reaction content, I give a 50-50 revenue share to the original creator. Anything that this video and reaction makes, I be sure to pay it back to the original creator, because that essentially I think is the best way to go about it until YouTube decides to change the meta or perhaps gives a way of linking these videos together. Speaking of linking videos, the original will be linked in the description if you just want to go check out his thoughts on the subject itself, but we're going to go ahead and dive in and have a really good time. Always interested in the discussion and your thoughts below. Again, if you guys have videos that you'd like me to see and kind of discuss, note that that is essentially kind of the policy. You guys ask for me to take a look at it and then I follow through, and then also anything that this again generates, we'll make sure that is shared with the original creator. I think that's the best that we can do until YouTube obviously makes some updates. Now, hello everyone and welcome to my channel. Like I said, my name is Brian. If you happen to be new, if you're a returning subscriber, welcome back, you beautiful legends, you. And that's what you get for subscribing, by the way. Free compliments at the start of these videos. I've gone ahead and pre-liked this video. If you guys feel like this video earns it, be sure to hit that like button as it helps it out within the algorithm. And let's go ahead and dive on in to New World Hates Its Players.
So a couple weeks ago, I had this fantastic idea, or so I thought, because it actually turned out to be a horrible idea. And let me explain. I was sick and tired of having this microphone in the shot of all my videos, because usually the microphone was over here on this side, kind of like this, and this is how my videos kind of looked. So I sat down at my computer desk. I did a whole bunch of research looking at different kinds of microphones, and I chose what I thought was the best one. Armed with my credit card, I spent a bunch of money, got a new boom arm, and got a new microphone. It's this one. It's right here. It's this thing. When it finally came in the mail, I was so excited. I spent the whole day, I set it up, plugged everything in, did a whole bunch of audio tests, and made a video with it, which was my last video talking about how Final Fantasy XIV respects your time. Lo and behold, this is how it sounded, which is not that good. There was no way to make this microphone sound as...
I might have to check out his Final Fantasy XIV video, how it respects your time. There's obviously a discussion to be had there, and I've seen varying strong opinions, especially about the concept of respects your time. I think essentially MMOs, especially video games, are all about wasting your time, but choosing to waste your time, not being forced to waste your time. And there is definitely a thin line. There is a line that you have to kind of balance on, because if I feel that my time was well wasted, then it was worth it. I think the concept of respects your time, that seems like a meta keyword. That seems like some kind of way of kind of triggering one group over another group, but that's just my take on the phrase. We see it happen all over. This is a game that respects your time. I don't know. I don't want to harp on that. Maybe we'll harp on that in a dedicated video in the future.
As good as this tried, tested, and true microphone that I've been using for years. But I spent money on this. I spent time on this. I researched it. I developed it. I built it. I put it together, and I tried to use it, and I put it out into the world in the product. So I should stick with it, right? Fuck no. This thing is fucking trash. No matter how much I want to protect my ego, no matter how much I don't want to take the L, no matter how much money I invested in it and time I invested in it, it's garbage. And New World needs to learn this fucking lesson. New World hates its players. And I know that's a very bold statement, but by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly what I'm talking about as I go through every single type of player in the world and why New World hates each of them individually. At the end of this video, you're going to ask the same question I've been asking. Who is this game for? It's not news to you, and it's not news to me that New World was at a beautiful peak, almost 1 million concurrent players. And since little Jimmy and little Johnny aren't playing New World all day long, that 1 million concurrent players, you could guess, is actually millions of people logging into New World every single day. And
so for that, essentially kind of the math on it ends up being a times 7 to 11 industry standard multiplier. The other way you factor it in is to kind of figure it out is around looking at the hours played. And then essentially what we end up seeing is that with the COVID update, COVID pushed the typical gamer from 7.1 hours per week to 8.3 hours per week over a course of gamers, especially aged, I think, anything from 15 to 65. So the overall gaming hours per week went up. Now, I always looked at MMO players doing it longer, so my factor ended up being from going from 10 to 12 hours per week for the average amount of playtime for an MMO player specifically, which overall, when you start to factor in where New World is today versus where it was, the launch ended up being anywhere from 11, to 15 million players on day, month one, as a part of a monthly active kind of users, and that has only grown. The average the monthly active users right now is around 250,000. So yeah, it's no secret that there has been a dip in player population, but we've seen the same kind of dips across multiple MMOs. But that's a story for another day.
It has dropped all the way down to, what, we're under 20,000 concurrent now? It's insane. And I think the most shocking part of that decline was that within the first month, 600,000 concurrent viewers lost. Within the first month.
Not shocking at all. Like that, you could have, if you were going to put bets in Vegas, I actually betted that it was going to be a bigger drop. But yeah, we'll talk more about that.
How many of those people do you think got to level cap? None? I think the answer is none. Later in this video, we're going to talk about Bartle types, which is a system of splitting players into 4 different categories, and we will get into that. But to start,
and again, just to contradict him in terms of his data, the number of people who get level cap and dipped actually is quite large. So the expectation that anybody who dipped between that period of time that didn't hit level cap is not, like, that's not true at all. In fact, actually, I was just talking with a handful of people who quit during the first 2 weeks, having achieved level cap. So that's just one example to say that it's not a zero-sum game in this regard.
We're going to start with people who enjoy leveling, people who enjoy questing, people who enjoy a story, and how New World hates those players. Leveling in New World is horrible. It's beyond garbage. I mean, many of you probably experienced the same thing I experienced, the same thing we all experienced in New World, was that level 30 to 35 wall, where the quests ran out and grinding on mobs took too long. So how are you going to level? If the developers of New World cared about the leveling process, they would have gone one of 2 ways. They could have gone the World of Warcraft way, where you've got little quest hubs, you do the quest there, you go to the next quest hub, do those there, and you travel until finally you reach level cap somewhere down the line of questing. Or they could have gone the Final Fantasy XIV route and made a beautiful story with a great characters and a leveling system that by the time you finish the story, you hit level cap. Instead, you're left with a questing system that finished at 30 to 35, you ran out of quests to do, and you were stuck doing something called town boards. For those of you that don't know, this is what town boards looks like. And basically, you had to take your gold, go to the trading house, buy a bunch of materials, hand them into the town board for nothing but experience. You literally bought your way to max level with gold. And how is a brand new player supposed to make all that gold? Oh, we're gonna get there. The quests suck in New World. You've got 4 basic types. Go here and talk to guy. That's a great one. Then you've got go here and kill this many of this thing. Then you've got go here, kill this many of this thing, but pick up their drops, right? And then you've got go and loot this many chests. That's all the quest types in New World. Riveting! Beyond riveting. It's fantastic. And apparently there is a story in New World involving a character named Isabel and someone else, and I honestly don't know the story. I've never encountered it. Unlike Final Fantasy XIV, that turned me, someone who did not care about stories in MMOs, into a story-addicted junkie. And man, at least World of Warcraft had funny quests like Mankirk's wife and stuff. Questing, story, leveling. The types of players that enjoy those things, you're not going to find them here in New World.
This, oh man, like, I'm gonna be frustrated. Why do we want to create another copy of WoW, which is what 14 is? And 14 delivers on a story, absolutely. But 14 isn't an MMORPG, and New World more is. I would relate New World more to ESO, maybe to Guild Wars 2 in that regards. WoW and 14, they're really pouring themselves into the single player aspect. In fact, that's what made World of Warcraft so popular. Not that that's a bad thing. A lot of people will hear that and have to, like, the defense force come in play and say, no, this is like, it's gotta be like, no, there is a legitimate reason to invite somebody into your game who is intimidated by multiplayer, and then invite them into the aspect of multiplayer. But you're going to see Final Fantasy XIV really lean in furthermore than it already has into that single player approach. I said it when it launched in ARR that it's a Final Fantasy game first and an MMORPG second, and it has since only continued to push that MMO, that multiplayer aspect, more into its end game, where the single player story, the Final Fantasy game, has existed this entire time. And that's only going to be more present overall. I think overall, like, the critique in this regards is absolutely weak. And like, all due respect to his opinion here, I don't want New World to be another instance simulator RPG that isn't going to have any kind of nostalgic presence. Like if New World tried to lean into the things that make Final Fantasy XIV strong, or the things that make World of Warcraft strong, they will fail every time, because there's no historic nostalgic approach that is going to resonate with the player. Now, New World should lean into its strengths, and yes, I think from a story delivery, perspective, there's a lot that could be had here. There's a value-driven aspect. In fact, if you actually do finish Isabella's storyline, there is this epic cutscene that starts to set up the next round of stories that the game is supposed to tell. But if you end up going the 14 route, where everything is so story locked before you can do anything, then yeah, like you're going to end up having risks, and there's going to be a downside to that. Final Fantasy XIV now has to figure out, how do you invite players in where all of a sudden it's like you got thousands of hours of story to get to, just to get to the content that's being advertised. I don't think New World will have that problem, but we'll have to wait and see in the long run. Now, from a story perspective of the quest hubs, I love how actually New World's got it spread out. They've got lots of different quests. It doesn't necessarily end at 35. I think maybe it might have, but as somebody who just plays the game, I always viewed New World as the end game begins at level 1. You do everything you do in the game grants you experience, whether you're harvesting, gathering, crafting, doing town boards. And the fact that you can do town boards and have that economy perspective, it's really valuable. My problem with the town boards is that once you hit level 60, there's no reason to do them. There's not a massive return on your investment of time, because XP doesn't have any value. And if they ever fix that, that's going to be something personally exciting for me to see. I continue to see the argument that New World should be like the games that people hate. And that's especially when it comes to World of Warcraft. But World of Warcraft dominates. Final Fantasy XIV dominates. But it is something that people understand and therefore can draw a comparison to. I think New World should hopefully continue to refine its quest system and these features outright. But I don't want them to become the thing that I already own, right? Because, and this is the kind of the key point here, is that if you love Final Fantasy XIV and New World is just a lesser version of that, why would you spend time in New World? If you love World of Warcraft, or even are pissed off at these games, and New World is just a copy of that, why would you spend time with that? That's the problem where we saw the wave of these WoW clones come and go, is that they weren't doing anything special. I think New World does a lot of things that are incredible and special and important. I think that the things that they've done over the course of this last year have been impactful and positive for the game itself. I think overall that, yeah, we're gonna let him continue on, but like that in and of itself, I think is like that mindset is probably the popular mindset, and that's why I know I get a lot of hate, because I can't sign up for it. I can't get on board with it. But we'll see if he's got any clarifying statements here.
New World hates levelers. New World hates questers. Remember that one time I talked about earlier in the video about making money to pay for your town board leveling? Oh, let's talk about that. Let's talk about gatherers and how New World hates gatherers. In the early days of New World, gathering was actually pretty cool and pretty sweet. Check this out. You'd go out as little Billy or little Timmy, and you go and you chop down some trees or whatever, and after a little while you notice that occasionally as I'm chopping down this tree or I'm skinning this boar, I would get special loot. And every time you got that little special loot, you're like, huh, that's kind of nice. I got some special loot, a little dopamine rush, right? You go to the trading post and you find out that special loot's actually worth some coin. So every time you got the special loot, you got the extra coin, the extra gold, and that dopamine hits you. Bam. Nice. That's so cool. How can I get more of that sweet, sweet loot? And then you discover that there's this thing called luck, right? There's luck in the game for mining and for skinning, all these things. You can have luck on your armor. You can have luck on your bags. You can have luck on your tools. And the more luck you had, the more of that sweet, sweet resource you get your hands on and get more and more dopamine. It's a fantastic system. Eventually, you reach level 200 of your gathering skill and you're getting the legendary drops, the big boy drops. Every time you get a bunch of smolderhide from a skinning, you get hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of gold worth of legendary crafting materials. And all that felt so, so good. Until New World fucking ruined it. Introducing, for no reason at all other than to give endgame players something pointless to do, we released the aptitude system, which means you hit level 200 of a skill. And then as you go all the way around the circle of a skill, you become level 201. And your reward? A box! And in the box, legendary materials. What is the fastest way to take something worth a bunch of money and make it worthless? That's to flood the market with a bunch of it for free. All of a sudden, the valuation of these legendary materials went from 100 to 200 gold coins apiece to 12 gold coins apiece. All that cool gear you picked up to increase your gathering luck, useless. Pointless. What's the point of getting legendary mats when you go and gather because they're worth nothing? New World, for no reason whatsoever, absolutely killed the joy of gathering for those that like gatherers. New World hates gatherers. Now the only people that do any gathering.
All right, absolutely disagree. The aptitude system is by far one of the smartest systems that they've introduced. And what he's referring now to is the economy. Like, you would go and gather, and it doesn't, hitting a tree isn't going to get you aptitude level 1. So as a part of that, as a part of a reward for doing so, you get this concept called Emerald Gypsum, which you can use to increase your gear score. You get not just materials from those crates, but you can also get like all kinds of rewards, and they're random. It's not necessarily guaranteed. So yeah, like, supply is going to have an impact on the economy, but that's also then demand as well. So there's a lot of factors that are being posed here, but it feels incredibly rewarding. In fact, crafting and gathering has felt even more rewarding, and they've continued to make adjustments overall. So what he's also probably even referencing is that various different like mining nodes have come into the game, making it easier to go and find, you know, rarer materials that were actually in such high demand that it was creating economic imbalance and making it difficult to do other crafting things. So yeah, prices fluctuate, but that's not them hating on the gatherers at all. That's actually a better kind of system overall for everybody. And yeah, maybe you're making a little bit less, but you're still also making tons of materials on your way to that +1 and that +2 post level. And it's rewarding, because if there wasn't anything special that you could do at 200, then why even grind it up in the first place?
Gathering in New World are the bots, and that's actually another reason why New World hates gatherers, because they have not dealt with the bots. On the flip side,
not true. They've banned bots, and they were always focusing in on that. Same thing with Final Fantasy. Just because you don't ever see them say, hey, we actually, like, this is, like, they don't hang, like, you know, that actually be freaking cool. All of a sudden, like, hey, we found this bot, and there would be some kind of like public execution of them as they get deleted out of the game. I think that would be the only way to kind of satisfy it, but that's not true.
Without the bots, who's going to go and do the gathering? Because gathering's worth nothing. So we need the bots?
Now, man, I make hundreds and hundreds of thousands. Like, I've made so much money gathering and fishing with the New World. It is incredibly valuable, well worth your time.
It's really confusing. See, the answer is you remove the bots, having a scarcity of all the resources that they farm, causing players, as the price goes up and goes up and goes up, to realize, if I go and farm that, it might be worth my time. Gathering's worthwhile again. Fix the bot problem, New World. So you had a level with town boards, and you had to do gathering. Gathering sucks, so how else can you make money? I know, crafting. Crafting is the biggest joke in New World. Mathematically, it is not worth your time or your money. It is the largest lottery system I have ever seen, aside from like full-on gacha games. That's an entirely different story. On the New World forums is this amazing post talking about crafting and the odds of crafting a piece of gear with the 3 perks that you actually want. The example used was to make a chest coat with resilient shuriken fortification and fortifying sacred ground. Chance of rolling a legendary item with resilient shuriken fortification and fortifying sacred ground equals 0.02%. This would take on average 5,050 attempts. And considering the materials, you're looking at tens of thousands of cooldown materials. And based off the prices of this person's server at the time, to craft that many attempts would take you 30 million gold. And I think there's actually a reason why there's so much RNG in crafting. I think New World had this plan down the road to release an item in their cash shop that would allow you to guarantee a second perk, which everyone would use to cut down on the RNG in crafting. But instead, they lost all their players, and now there's no point in releasing this monetization option because there's no one to monetize. And
this is such complete bullshit. Like, at the end of the day, like, the speculation and fear mongering in this video is absolutely absurd. Now, crafting, could it use some improvements? Yeah, like having focused, being able to lock in various perks, which you have the ability to try and assign things with crafting mods. There are ways to kind of help reduce that overall cost, but yeah, like, could crafting use some work and improvement? Yeah, in fact, actually with the July update, we're seeing some of that actually kind of come into place. Does it still need more? Like, am I saying that it's a perfect system? No, by all means no, but what I'm gathering, though, is that based off of his praise of WoW and 14 is that he has that mindset of that is the model for MMORPGs. And as a Final Fantasy 11 player, like, I absolutely don't. I want to see these kind of systems in place, because you have a lot of ways to go and gather and get the loot that you're looking for. Again, not saying that New World is perfect by any means, but oh my gosh, like I hard disagree with this video.
And here we are months later, and that still has not been addressed. New World hates crafters. We've talked leveling, we've talked crafting, we've talked gathering. Let's say somehow you make it to level 60. Congratulations, you're level cap, but you can't participate with anyone else in this game until you do a stupid grind. Introducing the expertise system, where any gear you buy in the auction house or get in a dungeon drop or get in PvP is reduced in power level until you complete the silly little gypsum grind. You do daily tasks in the world, you are rewarded with a resource, that resource is converted into orbs, the orbs are converted into another orb, and that orb is used to increase the expertise level of your item from 500 to 501. Congratulations, you're now 501, but you need to get to 600. How long could this take? Weeks. If you grind dungeons and do all your little daily tasks, it could take you weeks to do this silly arbitrary grind to get from 500 gear score to 600, which isn't even at the top, mind you. So even if you manage to get to level 60 and you play this game casually, congratulations, New World hates casual players. They don't want you to have equal gear to everyone else. You need to do this stupid grind just to stretch out the amount of time they have for their limited content. Let's take a look at the types of...
Do you apply the same critique to every MMO out there? Like, do you, if you're being fair and you apply that's the same thing? Like, let's apply that evenly across the board, which negates it as feedback. I actually, as a casual player, really enjoyed the gypsum system. It could be improved upon, and it sounds like that they're going to be doing that in the future. Man, like I hard disagree with like a lot of the things this video is saying. Like, the gypsum system is a method in which that as you progress, it gives you guaranteed increases in your expertise, as opposed to being completely RNG. By doing the various different content, you get all these different rewards, and yeah, it's gonna, if you really wanted it could take you a couple weeks to get things to 600. If that's your goal. It could take you longer than that if you wanted to, but it doesn't matter. You still can go run the dungeons. And yes, New World has limited content. It's like, this is the same, like, as long as you apply this same critique to like Final Fantasy 14 in year 1 and in year 2, like, and to WoW in the same kind of span, like into ESO, like, as long as you're honest with yourself and understand the year 1 nature of these, then this is just a common critique that I think is just easy points, just putting them up on the board, just easy points to be shared. And that's, I just hard disagree with it. Like, I think overall, like, once you hit 600, they have the Umbral Shard system, or actually it's like 590, and you can use those to infuse that and increase the gear score of the piece of gear that you have. I think that's actually a better system for, like, if you ended up saying like from 500 to like that, it's 625 right now. The Umbral Shards also had that infuse method, so you could get a piece of gear and then infuse it higher, thus increasing your expertise. I think that'd actually work out way better than what they have. But the system they have in balance is much better than they launched with, where it was pure RNG. So you could still go and do all the stuff you want and still have those expertise boosts happen along the way. The gypsum adds that static method of, hey, I did this stuff, I got these things, and now I can focus that expertise into the thing I want, as opposed to it being pure RNG. So let's say you were farming and you got all these different expertise increases by doing dungeons, but your axe wasn't, you never got a new higher expertise roll on your axe. Well, you did those dungeons, you get your gypsum, you do any kind of daily, weekly, whatever, you put it into the kiln, and then boom, now you focus your axe higher and higher, so you're not sitting here left, wishing that, the RNG gods would be kind to you. Anyway.
Some players that may still play New World based off of Bartle's player types for gamification. This obviously has to do with psychology of player, but it's just a way of categorizing the available player base. First up, you have the Achievers, who are all about points and status. They want to be able to show their friends how they're progressing. They have to collect badges and put them on display. This is the type of person who will respond particularly well to incentive schemes like air miles and things like that. I mean, you've met Achiever types in games. They love to show off their achievements, love to wear the cool armor they got in their dungeons and show off their cool mounts and things like that. Achievers are an integral part of MMO culture. But in New World, there's no mounts to show off. And there's no transmog to show off the cool armor you've collected over time. There's achievements in the game, if they work, because sometimes they don't work. I logged in the other day and couldn't access my achievements. And even if they do work, there's no way to share them. You can't link the achievement in chat to show off, hey, I got this achievement. Look at me, I'm amazing. There's no cosmetic rewards for the achievements. There's no cool armor to get, or cool mounts, or cool this, or cool that. There's nothing to achieve. World of Warcraft does a great job with this, with all these amounts and all these linkable achievements. Final Fantasy XIV has a very diverse transmog system that they love it. Glam is endgame in Final Fantasy XIV.
That's the
in
worst.
Final Fantasy XIV,
I am absolutely against glam as endgame. I know I'm in the minority of that, but when it comes down to it, it's just absolutely frustrating.
the hardest, most difficult raid content only rewards you with a cosmetic thing that is a prestigious status symbol. New World has none of that. If you're the achiever type in MMORPGs, well, New World hates you. They've got nothing for you. The next type is the explorer, and they want to see new things and discover new secrets. They're not as bothered about points or prizes. For them, discovery is the prize. They are fine with repetitive tasks as long as they eventually unlock a new area of the game or they get some cool little Easter egg. The New World map is actually not that big, and once you've walked around a few times, there's nothing to explore. There's no in-game Easter eggs to check out. There's no rep grinds to unlock new things you can do. There's no new zones to try and achieve and acquire. In fact, some of the coolest zones in the game are completely underutilized. I've barely ever adventured into the Asian theme zone. Meanwhile, it's the coolest zone there. There's nothing to explore. There's nothing to achieve. There's nothing to do in New World. So if you're the explorer type, I'm sorry, New World hates you too. Then you have the socializer.
Oh man, I could not disagree more with this guy. Talking about being on complete opposite ends of the spectrum here for the two of us. There's so much to explore. The world in and of itself is so inviting to be a part of. The open world bosses are there. Like, there's things to find and discover. Absolutely. So, all right.
Which makes up 80% of the people who play games. These people want to experience fun in their games through interaction with other players. They're happy to collaborate in order to achieve bigger and better things that they can do on their own. Games like Farmville are great for socializers because socializers can go water other people's plants to receive plants in return. New World is not Final Fantasy XIV when it comes to the social aspect of the game. There's no transmog. You can't show off cool things. You don't look cool. There's nothing like that. The best cosmetics, I put in huge heavy quotations, are located in the cash shop store, and they're not even that good. There's no sense of style or art in New World, and there's also very little reason to talk to anyone in New World or do anything with anyone. The biggest—
Oh my gosh, like, I absolutely disagree. New World's so much more social than Final Fantasy XIV. Like, you have to, and that's not a bad thing. Like, you don't have to, like, I don't think gamers want to have that forced social aspect, but I have to force myself to go into like a city just to see other players, where in New World that's happening all the time. Like, and it's not that one game is better than the other. Like, if you've got your preference, and that's more, but this critique is complete. I cannot disagree more with it. Like, it just feels uninformed and unrealistic, and obviously, like, it just feels overly biased. And maybe that's probably the term. And my bias.
The social thing in New World is actually the wars for the cities, and those are 50 people versus 50 people. That's the biggest social thing you do, and it's limited to only like 2% of the player base who ever get into wars. How about a big boss, a big dungeon to go and fight with a whole bunch of like 20 or 30 people? No, that doesn't exist in New World. The maximum party size is 5. The biggest
I know that it does exist in New World. Like, it's, you go and you find they have this concept called world tours and trains that are going off all the time with hundreds of people all participating to take down all these big world bosses and challenge some of the hardest content. It's exhilarating. It's absolutely some of the coolest stuff to ever think and see within a game. So completely wrong here.
Dungeons have 5 people. Congratulations. And there's no way to gain any benefit from helping other people.
And like on that, it's in the open world. It's not just instant simulator content. Like, that's why I think New World is the best game that everybody thinks is dead. It is truly an incredible experience that continues to get incredible, but yet it's still going against this mindset, this archaic thing that it's, hey, it's not an exact copy of this thing that I quit. You know, oh, it's, you know, there is some translation that needs to happen whenever, like, coming into the game itself, but oh my gosh, man.
Like in Farmville, you can go water other people's plants and bring some of those plants home for your farm. In New World, you can go and help somebody gather, but there's no benefit. You can go and help somebody craft, I guess, but there's nothing there. There's no social aspect to New World. There's no reason to get together with your fellow players and do anything.
Oh, there's absolutely thousands of reasons. In fact, teaming up together ends up being very rewarding and just enjoyable. Now, as far as it, like, would there be a cool aspect of like group crafting? I think that'd be kind of cool. I'd love to see that. Like gathering parties in that regards, it would be cool to see that. Like there definitely could be some ways that they can incentivize that. That also ties into the company system as well. Like there's definitely more room for improvement in those aspects, but I often find that, especially like playing with whether any kind of level range player, that it's more beneficial for me to enjoy, and we actually all benefit from going and doing whatever it ends up being, whether it's in the open world or in an instance dungeon. So again, I don't see where he's coming from here.
Post rush, you log in with a bunch of people at random. You can party up, I guess, but it doesn't make too much of a difference. You've got 3 vs 3 arena, finally, after all this time. But there's no reward system, there's no tier system, there's no cosmetic reward, there's nothing. To be frank, again, if you're a socializer type, New World's got nothing for you. They hate the socializer types. Yeah, and finally, you've got the killers, which you'd think would be perfect for New World, but bear with me. The killer denotes an ominous sounding type, but that is nonetheless valid. Killers are similar to achievers in the way they get a thrill from gaining points and winning status too. What sets them apart is that they want to do so to see other people lose. They're highly competitive, and winning is what motivates them, and they want to be the best at the game. And it should come as a little surprise that the only way for that is to beat everybody else. Killers, I guess, get the most fun out of New World, but it's still not nearly enough. Outpost Rush, the battleground of New World, wasn't even out when the game came out, and it took months for them to release it, and they finally released it, and they filled it with a bunch of player versus environment mechanics that
it was out. Actually, it was a little broken at first. Like it came out and then there was some kind of bugs that they fixed. So like it wasn't something that took months for them to get out. Anyway, just correcting here.
Quickly overpowered the player versus player content. If you guys remember the old school brutes, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And then congratulations, you killed a couple players in Outpost Rush, but there's no benefit. There's no reward. You get to the top of the leaderboard, but that means nothing. There's nothing. There's no ranking system in this game. And then really,
the ranking system's coming in the fall, so both for PvE and PvP. But yeah, like it would be really good to have more stats and things like that. So I believe that's going to be happening at some point here in the near future.
Really late into the game cycle so far, they finally give us 3 vs 3 arena and release no rewards, no benefit worth anything, and no ladder system.
So yeah, no ladder system, but absolutely they have the various different benefits, from the PvP reward track to the gypsum to all of these various things all kind of playing out. So yeah, there is a reward system in place for both OPR and the 3v3 arena. Actually, the biggest weakness of it is that it does not yet support cross-server play, which they say is on its way. We just don't have an ETA on that. But yeah, then tying that into kind of a leaderboards and tracking and stats system, that will be actually, I think, really beneficial for people who like that. The fact that they're also going to be doing that for PvE content has me personally excited as well.
How about open world PvP? That's the killer's dream. Roaming the world, killing other players. They tried. New World kind of tried, but they really didn't, because they gave us options to encourage us to do open world PvP and then took it from us. They took the best open world PvP we've seen all this time. They took it from us after only a couple of weeks of giving it to us. And I use the word us because I follow in the killer category. Absolutely. When they released the PvP track, the fastest and most efficient way to farm it was to go to this place called Great Cleave, a section of the map, and run the PvP missions in there because they were very fast and efficient. However, you needed to be PvP flagged to do so, and this created an insane amount of open war content where sometimes the different factions would be nice to each other and they wouldn't fight each other, but that was always tenuous. And as soon as a little bit of fighting broke out, all hell broke loose, and it was a player versus player's dream in that place.
He is absolutely right on this front. Like that is some of the one of the things that they hopefully will learn from that is the reason they ended up doing it was because it was obviously way more efficient than anything else. So it just basically took everybody, obviously their efficiency brain is both the lifeblood and death of an MMORPG. So that having come all into play is why you saw that. I think that's what they need. I think they need to have kind of that rotator of like, okay, we're all like, this is where everybody wants to be if you want to be world v world, open world flagged. And that essentially I think would help solve and also help that problem. But yeah, I think them taking it away has been a disappointment because that is essentially what it created. If you wanted to be a part of that, it was chaos, it was magical, and I think they should bring that back, but bring that back in a way of maybe making it, rather than just like one spot, like it's like maybe it's Cutlass Keys. They could always end up having it being kind of a big rotator, like, guys, this is where, if you want to be flagged, and this is where it's going to get nuts because it's going to be very valuable for you to do so. They do that, I think that's going to be essentially the solution. But yeah, like I definitely agree with him on there.
Until the developers thought that we were farming XP too fast and they nerfed it into the ground, taking from the killers the only fun thing we've ever had in open world PvP. The pinnacle of PvP in the game for killers are the wars. The wars fighting over the cities, except again, only a very, very small percentage of people ever get into those wars because it's 50 versus 50 and there's thousands of people on the server. New World almost liked killers. Almost. Until they took away the one thing we enjoyed the most. New World hates the killer type as well. New World hates players that enjoy leveling and enjoy story. Final Fantasy XIV loves those players. New World doesn't care. New World hates players that want to craft by having the stupidest amount of RNG ever seen in a crafting system.
I doubt that's the most RNG.
By removing the entire point of that big old dopamine rush by making the gathering materials received worthless. New World hates any player that reaches 60 by giving them the stupidest grind I have ever seen in an MMORPG. The most pointless, no fun grind. New World hates the achievers.
On the grind itself, especially post game, while I do and have advocated for several improvements, and if you guys are interested, like I've got those videos up, I'll leave that up to you. But the grinds that frustrate me are the grinds that they roll back. So whenever you see like that vertical progression always resetting, that's where I get frustrated. And I actually have enjoyed my investment in my grind so far. And if that ends up being something that gets reset every couple of months, then yeah, that's where I'll end up when you can kind of detect that pattern, that's why I end up dipping out personally. But that's where it's like within Final Fantasy 14, people are like, oh, are you going to go to I was like, I'm going to wait till the point 4. That's when I care, because that's going to give me the longest benefit of that grind. So when he brings up Final Fantasy 14, as much as I love that game, I don't think it's the model that I want New World to follow, because I don't want New World to be a single player online subscription-based story game.
Types by giving them no way to show off any of their achievements. New World hates the explorer type because there's nothing to explore. No hidden Easter eggs, nothing. New World hates the social types by giving them no means to be social and no reason to do so. And New World finally hates the killer type by ruining the one moment, the one shining thing we had as the killers, by stripping that from us and leaving us with OPR, unranked, 3v3, unranked. Oh, and New World hates raiders because there's no rating in this game.
Yeah,
when I went and I bought this microphone, I quickly realized I wasted my time, I wasted my money, I wasted all my energy on this stupid thing. So I got rid of it. I'm no longer using it. It's a waste of time. And I returned to the tried, tested, and true Shure SM7B that I have here. But that doesn't mean this was perfect. Before I bought this brand new boom arm that is low fitting, goes under my monitor, produced by Elgato, I had this flimsy hunk of junk. And you can probably hear how garbage this stupid thing is. Just because this was doing good enough, I wasn't satisfied with good enough. I wanted to improve upon it. This is New World right here. This is World of Warcraft and other MMOs before it. Just because it worked, just because it was good enough, doesn't mean it can't be improved upon. And that's what New World needs to do. New World needs to take their L. They need to realize that what they've done is garbage. What they've done is not good enough and doesn't please any of the players we talked about today. But they also,
I don't know if you want to please the same players. Like those same players aren't necessarily like the same target demographic that you're looking towards. I would say New World is not garbage by any stretch of the imagination. They have delivered an incredible experience, incredible like visual world. When you talk about people who actually play the game, who talk about how good it is, I think essentially what New World has to do is continue to deliver content, hands down content. And then if they continue to do that, what will end up being interesting to see is that as people come back to check out the game, oh, I thought this game had died, and they come back and check it out. And then it's like, oh, wow, like, this is beautiful and this is really good and I really enjoy this. Is New World perfect? Nobody's arguing that. No one's making that case. But New World is far from garbage. But it's easy to meme on. That's the algorithmic thing. It's the safe thing to say, to win. Oh, yeah, it's in this video, I'm going to get a lot of hate because of my stance, because of how I present myself in terms of my opinion about a video game. He's definitely playing it safe. Now, I'm not saying his opinion is illegitimate, but it's the mindset that you continually see online. But then you actually go into the game itself and you experience it. And overall, people who are playing New World really love the game. And the fact that people are returning to the game every single month, people are like, oh, wow, this has been great. Taking a break. MMORPGs are seasonal, and I think that the data proves that. What will be really interesting is that if Amazon continues to develop the game, then we will ultimately have data that will either back up my view in terms of my analysis of the MMOs or not. And if I'm wrong, I'll take the L. But I honestly still believe that I'm absolutely right when it comes to the MMOs and content being king, if they continue to invest in it. If they don't, then they won't. But we still have many big updates, one planned for July. Then they've got another one planned for this fall, which essentially will be a kind of a brand, like the 1 year thing with the Great Axe, the Great Sword, New Zone, and more. I think New World needs a lot more content, and I think essentially that's why I've advocated that the expansion model is probably the best way that they could go about it, because that helps bring up hype for the expansion, helps bring people back who want to see all the changes, and then leading into the expansion, and then it delivers a massive amount of content. When you actually look at the numbers in the player drop, New World launched with around 4, maybe 5 months worth of content, and that's actually where you start to see the biggest drops in the player base once people have finished the content. When people continue to say that they've left New World after spending 1,000 hours and 2,000 hours into the game, that tells me that there is something really special within the game itself, and it's just going to be a matter of time before they end up returning to the game at that time. Will it ever hit its peak highs? I doubt it. I don't think that essentially MMOs are as popular as people think they are. I think a lot of people think that MMOs are really popular because World of Warcraft broke the curve. But if you take World of Warcraft out of the factoring and all that, New World I think is doing just fine.
You need to realize that what is tried, tested, and true isn't good enough either. They can take the old system, improve upon it, and remove the parts that need to be removed. I stream over on twitch.tv/Crojack. If you want to join me and help me reach that goal of being a full-time streamer, I would greatly appreciate it. And a huge thank you so much to my loving patrons over on Patreon who helped to try and make this dream become a reality.
So, guys, obviously, I would definitely encourage you to go check out Crojack, his content. Just the fact that we disagree so much in terms of what New World does probably means that you might end up, if you made it to the end of this video, either agreeing with me heavily or disagreeing with me heavily and agreeing with him. But as always, I want to encourage you to go check him out. Now, again, I stand by my word. In this video, we shared the content, especially since he said he's streaming over Twitch, so that should be actually pretty easy to be able to give him any kind of cut from this video itself. So thank you guys so much for your time. Man, I couldn't disagree more with what this guy was saying. I think it's essentially it's clear I feel like it's clear when somebody has a bias. I think Final Fantasy XIV is a great RPG MMO. I think New World is a fantastic MMORPG, and I think both can actually exist within the player base. So I thank you for your time. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hopefully you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in my next one. But until then, take care.
Yeah. It's time to chill out on the couch and read some comments. That's right. You know me when it comes to Destiny. I'm off with the clan, and I'm glad you're feeling better. Oh yeah.